Hello and welcome to Apex Online Racing. This is Assetto Corsa Competizione GT free class, and tonight's race is round 8 of season 4 and is for tier 7. This race will take place at Zandvoort in Holland. So let's have a look at the Drivers' Championship standings before moving on to the next round. Last time out at Bathurst, Nils Nin slipped into second place, having had a disappointing result at Bathurst thanks to a few visits into the wall. If you look at Connell's results, he's had 3 first places this season, and Nils has had a first, a second and 2 thirds. With the worst result being discounted, the battle is extremely tight between the two of them. Danny Winspur has shown steady improvement all season from a low point of 29th place at the Nürburgring on the opening round to a victory at Misano at round 6. How can he do in the last 2 rounds? Will he be able to move up and get second or maybe even first place if either Connell or Nils have a bad result? From 4th place onwards in the table, it's still a very tight fight with not many points separating all the drivers. Paul Martin, number 76 team Gently Bentley, for a long time held on to 3rd place in the championship, but a couple of bad results in the last few rounds have seen him slip down to 6th place. Right behind him is Manuel Dukes in number 7 team Gently Bentley, who's shown good results across the season, but one non-start has pushed him down the table a little. If he keeps on performing to the same standard, he'll move up the table and may well overtake his teammate. Stephen Bezic in number 83 Beeswax Racing has shown consistent results across the season and is often inside the top 10, but without a high finish against his name, gonna have to do better to move further up the championship before the season ends. Suleiman Barr in 9th place has shown erratic results with a 1st, a 2nd and a 3rd, but also a 13th and a 16th, and more crucially 2 non-starts. Those 2 non-starts have cost him dear as he's lost points, and that's why he's currently languishing in 9th place. Given the strong finish, he could well take points away from other drivers vying for the championship, where his own chances appear slim with such a huge gap between himself and 1st place. Alex Marks has also shown fair consistency across the season with 2 strong 3rd place finishes, but his failure to get inside the top 10 in any of the other races means that he's sat in 10th place and may well be looking over his shoulder to retain his top 10 finish for the end of the season. Moving on to the Teams Championship, Beeswax Racing are still in 1st place, as they have been all season, with Team Gently Bentley in 2nd. But for both teams there was mixed results across both drivers at the last race out at Bathurst. Moving further down the field, the gaps are starting to open between the other teams, with Visually Impaired Racing in 3rd, Aston Martin Racing 4th, Generations Racing 5th and Simulation in 6th. There's only 2 rounds left, so both drivers in each team will need to perform well to ensure their positions are maintained or possibly improved. Circuit Zandvoort first opened in 1948 and has been used for a variety of motorsports ever since. The circuit we will be using tonight was first used in 1999 but was replaced in 2020 by the new Formula 1 circuit layout with its bank corners. The circuit we will be racing on has got 15 corners and is a tight and twisty circuit. Overtaking will be quite challenging, so qualifying will be critical. The weather prediction for this round was for warm and sunny weather with a 20-degree track. However, during free practice there was heavy downpours, and moving into qualifying it's light drizzle with a greasy track surface and changeable conditions, making it extra challenging for our drivers to lay down a good time. Let's have an onboard lap with our eventual pole sitter Manuel Dukes and see what conditions were like for our drivers. So we join Manuel Dukes as he comes off the last bend and onto the main straight, passing under the start-finish gantry now. The straight is not very long before he reaches the first hairpin bend of Tarzanbocht. Keeps to the inside, drops it down to 2nd gear and accelerates away. It's not long before he's round Geraldbocht and approaches the Hugenholzbocht hairpin bend. Another slow corner, down to 2nd gear, comes out the bend, hard on the throttle, takes a little bit of the curb and accelerates away down what is effectively a very long winding straight. Up to Shelvlak. Shelvlak being a big open right-hander. Difficult to get the throttle down without losing the car. The next turn is the Marlboro Bocht. Trying to take as much curb as you can on the inside of that one. And another short straight before the Renault Bocht. And then again a short squeeze of the throttle before the big left-hander of the Vodafone Bocht. Keep as close as you can to the inside of the curb, accelerate away, take the outside curb and move forward underneath the gantry and over the crest, and you drop down towards the Audi S chicane. Brake hard, it's tight right and then a left before accelerating away again, picking up the curb on the right hand side and avoiding the Porsche that's on a slow down lap. And it's into Kumho Bocht. Avoid the sand on the left hand side and it's into Arret Lien de Vocht and round into the final straight. Coming out of that bend, keep the throttle down all the way to the line and setting a pole position of 139.8. So qualifying on the first row, it's Manuel Dukes alongside Conor McCarthy. Row 2, it's Nils Nins alongside Danny Winspur. Row 3 is Kukulov Eugene alongside Solomon Barr. The 4th row, it's Alex Marquez alongside Blind Guy Murphy. 5th row is Dominic Heath alongside Edward Crawford. 6th row is Tyler Sorg alongside Paul Martin. 7th row is Kieran Wilson alongside Stephen Vezic. The 8th row is Lev Balokin of Tugarin alongside Steve Allen. 9th row is Bernard George alongside Oscar Memisoglu. 10th row is Thomas Legrand alongside Morpheus 1975. The 11th row is Nikolai Kravnichuk alongside David Daly. And bringing up the end of the field is Robert Brakovic, who set a final qualifying time of 1:47.2. And it looks like Martin Brandon perhaps didn't set a time, but he'll be alongside Robert Brakovic on the final row of the grid. And we join the event just as the drivers are lining up for the start. Manuel Dukes there pulling away as the lights go green, and Connell's McCarthy's right alongside him. They're approaching Tarzanbach for the first time, and Connell's got the inside line. But Dukes manages to hang on, keeps it on the outside and retains first place out of the first corner. The weather reports before the race indicated it'd be a good chance of fine sunny weather. They were proven wrong. It's heavy rain. Heavy rain was indicated for the first 30 minutes, and as it turned out, it was heavy rain for the entirety of the race. Manuel Dukes pulling away cleanly and already has a small margin of lead over Conor McCarthy, who's in second place. Conor, of course, may be thinking of bigger things. He's got the championship at stake. He's in first place. This is the last of 2 rounds to go, and he doesn't want to throw it all away by making a wild and ambitious move at the start of the race. Nils Nins started in 3rd place and is still showing right behind him. And let's have a look at the start from the view within the pack. We're riding with Steve Bezic, who qualified in 14th place. And this is just the roll up to the start. Steve's just behind Paul Martin, who's ran in front of him. And these two are vying for position in the top 10 of the championship. And you'll see when the lights go green, a sudden acceleration and increase in engine noise. And this is it. Lights have gone green. And just look at the spray. Paul Martin's car is already completely invisible, coming up to the hairpin bend of Tarzanbach. So obviously drivers being careful. You can just see Kieran Wilson off to the left, still can't see Martin. Then as people slow down and the spray drops, the cars emerge out of the gloom. Steve accelerates away, looks to be going in a nice clean straight line, but all of a sudden gets a pump from behind, spins off to the grass, gets another crunch for his troubles, rejoins the track, and already slipped a number of places down in the race. Everybody accelerates away down the winding straight up to Schlag. Already can't see more than 1 car length in front because of the amount of spray. Having to figure out where the corners are from the objects at the side of the track. And we're now approaching Marlborough Bocht. Pulling to one side, trying to get a clear view of where the corner might be. Still the spray is pretty horrendous. Difficult to see more than 1 car in front of you. Like this for all drivers all the way down the field. The only person with a really clear view of everything will be Manuel Dukes out in first place. Coming up to the chicane. Being very cautious on the brakes and the throttle. No trouble on the chicane on this first lap, no cars stranded. And only 2 corners to go to finish the first lap. Well, who's down the right? That looks like Nins. Disaster already. Has he just seen his championship slip away from him? Coming around the corner, there's a car off to the left. So a number of cars struggling in these damp and wet conditions. And that's the end of the first lap, and there's only an hour to go in these conditions. And let's drive with Nins now. This is on the first lap. Let's see what happened to him. He's still behind Connell at this point, so he's still in third place, just approaching Kummelbocht. And the rear of the car just swings away from him, leaves him pointing directly into the barrier with the entire field coming up behind him, so Nins can't reverse out or he'll get his car completely destroyed and be up before the stewards for causing an avoidable accident. Nins frustrated there, staring at the barriers, waiting for everybody to go past. Eventually, Nins manages to reverse out onto the track, struggles to get going and pulls away in last place. A disaster at the start of the race. He's got 1 hour to try and make up all the way to the front and catch the leaders if he's to keep any hopes of his championship alive. And we're still in the opening lap, and it's Danny Winspur against Suleiman Barr. Danny gets the inside line for this first corner, but Suleiman gets better traction, gets better acceleration, but Danny's still got the inside line for the next corner and retains position. However, thanks to his wide line, Suleiman Barr gets the better inside apex and pulls away, leaving Danny Winspur still behind. So an attempt at a pass, but not a successful one. He's got the whole race ahead of him to make a difference. Lap 2, Edward Crawford coming up behind Morpheus 1975. They're side by side. This is the start-finish straight, so they're coming up to the Tarzanbach hairpin. And looks like Crawford's braver on the brakes. Goes around the outside and takes the corner and moves cleanly away from Morpheus. Good overtake by Crawford early in the race. And to top it off, Crawford then starts to attack Brakovic, the next car up the road. Lap 4 and Steve Bezic coming up behind Morpheus. There's 2 Porsches in front of him. This is on the start-finish straight coming up towards the Tarzanbach. Steve Bezic very brave on the brakes and actually overtakes 3 cars in one go there. Great move. And that is a recovery drive, having had a spin on the first lap when we were riding on board. And that move should put Steve Bezic into 14th place. Lap 5, and we're with Eugene attacking David Daly. Daly's had a bit of an off. He slid wide on Tarzanbach, which allows Eugene to make an easy pass on the inside. That should put Eugene into 8th place. Daly's back on track and will be coming on trying to recover that position. So lap 6, Alex Marquez, and you can just see Nins as well there, just behind him. Marquez attacking Morpheus 1975. Sweep straight past him, a lot of speed on the Lamborghini on the straight there, into the Tarzanbach, and Nins is following Marquez through. So Morpheus dropping 2 places there. And Marquez starts to close in straight away on Tugarin as well. Lap 8, we're with David Daly, and he was coming up to try and attack Eugene, try and reclaim that place he lost just a few moments ago. And it looks like Eugene's gone wide on Tarzanbach, claiming a few victims today. So it's Daly who this time has the easy pass. And we'll be looking for a good exit from the Hugenholz box and a good speed up the straight to try and stay away from Eugene. Lexus very fast in the rain. It's a car that really suits these conditions. It's lap 9, and it's Eugene and Daly yet again. This time it's Eugene attacking Daly from behind. But Daly goes wide. It's an easy pass this time for Eugene. The difficult conditions causing lots of drivers to have just minor mistakes A little slip off the track and all of a sudden you've dropped down 1, 2, maybe even 3 places. Lap 10 and it's Memisoglu against Morpheus 75 again. And a bit of a slight coming together then, just a gentle tap. It looks like both drivers were slightly losing control there in the difficult conditions. But Memisoglu gets the inside line and the leader's coming through, that's Dukes. So Memisoglu nicely pulls to one side, lets the leader come through, and already Morpheus has dropped a long way behind. Really struggling in these conditions. It seems unfortunate that every time the automatic highlights program has dropped to somebody, it seems to be Morpheus being overtaken. Lap 11, it's Suleiman Barr and Conal McCarthy. And Conal goes wide, slips onto the grass. Barr, I think, is surprised by, it looks like Morpheus yet again. Surprised by the speed of Morpheus in front of him, actually catches the back of him. But they both keep going, and Suleiman Barr pulls away. That should put him into second place. Lap 12, and it's Eugene now attacking Sorg. Eugene moving up through the field, is currently in 7th place. Sorg is in 7th. Daly's still close behind Eugene. There's just 1 second between the pair of them. You can see Daly there just in the background, just hovering behind Eugene, looking for an opportunity. And that looked to be in the Audi S chicane. Doesn't look like Eugene's going to get the pass done that time. And lap 12, Marquez on Brakovic. So Marquez down in 13th again. So he may be, after he's pitted, he may have had an incident or a spin. I know there are a number of drivers who had spins and had to do recovery drives, only to have another spin and have to do another recovery drive. But an easy pass there for Marquez to get round Brakovic. Not sure how easy it was to drive the Porsche in these conditions. You'll notice there aren't many Porsches high up in the field. Brakovic being the front runner in 12th place. And it's lap 19 and Memisoglu again with Nins. You can see, Nins has gone wide. It looks like he got a bit too close to Dave Daly there. Daly, of course, being a front runner, so Nins wouldn't want to be interfering with his race. Memisoglu saw his opportunity, but then went wide himself for the next corner, got caught in the gravel, and that let Nins go back through. But Nins and Memisoglu battling down in 17th and 18th place. Not where Nins needs to be for his championship. Lap 19 now, and Kravnichok and Memisoglu. Memisoglu feature a lot this week, but he misjudges Tarzanbot and slides wide, goes deep into the gravel, and that allows Kravnichok to pull away, leaving Memisoglu with more work to do to try and catch him up again to try and make that pass stick. And this was an incident on, I believe, lap 22. Very strange incident. We're with Brakovic. He's just coming around the final bend onto the main straight. He's got Crawford close behind, and just watch what happened to Brakovic's car then. It just seemed to jerk as though he put the brakes on full. But we're riding on board with him, and I couldn't see his brakes come on at all. Something really strange happened. But then the real disaster is Brakovic's decision to rejoin the track. He swung right in front of the race leaders. 3 cars, I believe, hit him, all straight into the pits. And Crawford, you can see, struggling in the background to get his car under control as well. You can see Eugene there pulling into the pits for major repairs. I think they've already completed the pit stops, so these are extra pit stops they all need to complete. There's Conal McCarthy, and I believe it's Winspur as well, all needing repairs. Bad decision by Brakovic to come across the track like that. I don't know what may have caused it. I'm sure that one's gone to the stewards for an investigation. And Crawford also gets into the pits for repairs. I don't think Crawford had any option there. I don't know what happened to Brakovic's car. It just seemed to stop stone dead right in front of him. Lap 23, so Conal McCarthy's recovered from the pits now. He's got Suleiman Barr right behind him, so Conal's in first place, so a good recovery from that big disaster affected all the leaders. But Conal's gone wide, makes it easy for Barr, and Dukes is right behind them as well, closing up. And looking down there, Denny Winspur's got a stop-goal penalty, 30 seconds, and that'll be a disaster for him because That's a big penalty to take in a short 1 hour race. There'll be no recovering from that penalty, I don't think, once it's been served. Lap 22, and it's Thomas Legrand in the number 57 Porsche and Nikolai Kravnichok in the 21 Audi R8. And it looks like Thomas went wide, making an easy pass for Kravnichok, just drives up the inside. And that'll be P15 for Kravnichok. Next tire up the road for him will be Crawford. Another Porsche driver with Legrand there having difficulty in these wet conditions. Again, all the Porsches towards the back of the field, not their night. Lap 26, and it's Crawford attacking Thomas Legrand. Lap 26, and Crawford's coming up on Legrand. That's Legrand. Oh, he just caught the back quarter of Crawford and spun him round. Don't think there was anything malicious in that. Looked like a bit of an accident, but Crawford caught the tyre barrier quite badly. Has rejoined the track and is pulling away. Legrand has pulled over and stopped, which is the etiquette of the race, but I think that was a bit of an accident. Lap 27, and it's Eugene attacking Steve Bezic. Eugene had been catching Bezic there for just one lap. He'd taken like 4 seconds, and it was clear there was no defending from Eugene. Much faster than the Lexus in these conditions. Bezic carrying a bit of damage that may have affected the overall speed, but the conditions were such that it was difficult to go quick. So Eugene straight through, and noticeable there's a 14-second gap to Sorg in front, which will come to play later. Lap 28, and it's Dominic Heath attacking Bernard George. This is onto the main straight, coming up towards Tarzanbocht. So Dominic going on the outside towards Tarzanbocht, and he's clear, well clear of Bernard George before we get to the hairpin bend. So an easy pass for Heath on that occasion. Lap 29, and it's Nils Nins down in 18th place. We're getting towards the end of a race now, so Nils' head will be down. He'll know his championships hopes are probably evaporated, barring a miracle to take place at the next round in Laguna Seca. Brakovic having probably a difficult night in one of the Porsches, a little bit wide there on the corner, touched the grass, so it wasn't too difficult for Nins to get through on the inside. Got many drivers, I think, looking towards the end of this race and being able to get out of this bad weather. And Eugene, lap 31, Eugene's caught Sorg 14 seconds in something in just like 4 laps to illustrate how quick he was in these conditions of the race at this time. Sorg right in front of him, but he'll be somewhat powerless with the speed differential between himself and the Lexus coming up behind him. So Sorg did try to prolong the agony for a little bit longer. This is the second highlights cut, but we're coming around onto the main straight up towards the Tarzanbocht. Eugene gets the inside line, which means all he needs to do is outbrake Sorg for the corner and he'll go through. There's nothing Sorg could do about that. The Lexus much quicker in these conditions than seemingly any other car on the track, with perhaps the exception of the Boltleys, who also seem to be doing well this week. Lap 30, Nils Nins coming up on Thomas Legrand in his 911. The highest placed Porsche at this moment is Thomas Legrand in P16. Nins goes past him, takes 16th place. After the race, Nins confirmed he'd put slicks on away from the rain tyres towards the end of the race. He was making up huge amounts of time, but it was just too late. The rain finally started to abate in the last 5 minutes of this race. And we join Manuel Dukes here for the race finish. He's barely a second clear of Suleiman Barr in second place, so a tight victory for Manuel this week, but a victory nonetheless. And he qualified on pole and finishes in first place, so a well taken victory for Manuel Dukes this week in the penultimate round of season 4 of Assetto Corsa Competizione for Tier 7. So let's have a look at the race results from tonight's race. In first place is Manuel Dukes, second place was Sulman Barr, and third place was Conor McCarthy. Key players in the Drivers' Championship were Paul Martin, who came in 6th, gaining himself 65 points, which will really help his position. Alex Marquez, who was in 10th position on the championship table coming into this race, has finished 7th. Stephen Bezic is in 10th place, but the other main players in the top 10 for the championship are not inside the top 10, so there could be a big shake-up for the Drivers' Championship this week. With Kieran Wilson not finishing this race, that's a big loss of points, and I know that Dommy64 could not attend this week's race either, so there's going to be big movements on the Drivers' Championship. And here's the impact on the Drivers' Championship. Conor McCarthy, with his 3rd place this week, solidifies his grip on the 1st place for the Season 4 Championship with 567 points. Nils Nins had another disastrous week following on from Bathurst, finishing P16 this week, but the gap between him and Connell is not insurmountable should Connell have a complete disaster at Laguna Seca at the next round. Leaping up into 3rd place on the Drivers' Championship is Manuel Dukes. He's had good solid finishes in the last few races, a 4th at Misano, a 2nd at Bathurst, and finally a victory here at Zandvoort. And this puts him into 3rd place on the Drivers' Championship. Not impossible, but Conor McCarthy would have to not finish next week's race to have any chance of Manuel taking the Drivers' Championship this season. Paul Martin recovers his position from 6th back up to 4th with a decent result this week. Danny Winspur was one of the victims of this week, finishing 20th. He slips down the table. Sulman Barr does move up a few places, but again, the deficit he's incurred by not participating in 2 races and a couple of finishes outside the top 10, he's going to struggle to get into the top 3 of the championship. Steve Bezic moves back up 1 place into 7th with another decent result this week. Dommy64 was not able to make it this week, so slips a long way down the table. Kieran Wilson was unable to complete the race this week, so he's also slipped a long way down the table. And Alex Marquez, with a good result in 8th place, solidifies his grip on 10th on the table. We've added extra information onto the championship table this week, which is pertinent to the Drivers' Championship final next week at Laguna Seca. For the championship, each driver's worst result is removed, which will affect the total number of points they've got available. This means that effectively Conor McCarthy, if you exclude his worst place of 17th, has actually got 543 points. This will affect the order of the table slightly, but Connell's still in 1st, Nils Nins is still in 2nd, and Manuel Dukes is in 3rd. However, 5th and 4th would reverse position. In fact, Paul Martin would drop to 6th, and Steve Bezic would drop to 10th because his results have been fairly consistent this season, and it's quite a high scoring position he would lose from his championship points. These points will be important moving into the next round, which is Laguna Seca. Moving on to the Teams Championship, the victory this week for Manuel Dukes and the good finish in P6 for Paul Martin, compared to the P10 finish for Steve Bezic and the P16 finish for Nils Nins, has allowed Team Gently Bentley to move into the lead for the first time all season on the penultimate round. So the championship decider is very much on for Laguna Seca, with both teams' drivers wanting to do well, maximise their points, because there's nothing in it. There's only 50 points between the two. Moving further down the table, it looks unlikely now that visually impaired racing will be able to dislodge either Team Gently Bentley or Beeswax Racing. It looks like they're really racing for 3rd place against Aston Martin Racing, who are in 4th, who are just 100 points behind. So again, it's definitely who will be in the top 10 next week at Laguna Seca is definitely going to have a big impact on the Teams Championship. There's very little difference between P4 and P5 on the Teams Championship between Aston Martin Racing and Generations Racing, and Simulation are also not completely out of it yet. There's less than 100 points between them and Generations Racing, so they will also be looking at Laguna Seca and trying to figure out how they can best maximise their points haul. Next week's race will take place at Laguna Seca and will be a 90-minute endurance race. which will mean open pit strategies and refueling will be available to all drivers. Join us next week to see how the Season 4 Championship will turn out for Tier 7. It's down to the wire, with neither the team nor the Drivers' Championship fully decided.